Alright, trigger warning everybody, because the following video is gonna make some of you go, but. Because here's the thing. Baldur's Gate, as a franchise, is not Icewind Dale, nor has it ever been Icewind Dale. What do I mean by that? Well, there are currently some people out there who will tell you that they don't like to play Baldur's Gate with the companions. They don't want to play Baldur's Gate 3 with the companions. They want to play Baldur's Gate 3 with their own custom party, which technically you can't do unless you use a funky workaround to spawn your own versions of a multiplayer client and then control all of those characters, which I would argue is not in the spirit of how the game was designed to be played, but of course at the end of the day, everyone has the right to play the game however they want. I am not arguing that point at all. You do you. You play the game how you want to play. But for those of you who might not know the Baldur's Gate franchise and you might not know the history of the series, we're going to dive into that today, because Baldur's Gate has always been a franchise that is about the strength of the companion characters that you bring with you, as opposed to a character or a party of characters, I should say, created from scratch. That was Icewind Dale's territory. But some of you might not know that, so we're going to dive into the history of both of these franchises and how they started the CRPG revolution back in the late 90s and early 2000s that got us to where we are today. Now, if you're new here, this is the point of the video where I'll say, hey, like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Check out all the other playlists, because we do a lot of different stuff on the channel. It's not just BG3. And of course, we do daily streams at 11 a.m. Central every single day. Discord links are down below. Now that we've said all of that, let's get into the meat of the matter. So, if you look at Baldur's Gate 1 and Baldur's Gate 2, those games were always designed around you playing a character, a main character who was the son of or daughter of, depending on how you wanted to play it, but you were the offspring of Baal, one of the gods in the Baldur's Gate lore or Forgotten Realms universe. Along the way, as you adventured through those games, you brought companions into your party. Each one of those companions had their own storyline, their own alignment, their own motives, and they could absolutely leave your party if you did things that upset them. Now, one of the interesting things about Baldur's Gate back in the day is that it was primarily designed as a single-player game, but they also offered players the opportunity to run a multiplayer session, and the intent of the multiplayer sessions were to have your friends come into the party and play just like you would do if you were playing a tabletop game. I play the fighter, you play the cleric, she plays the warrior, he plays the thief, she plays the wizard, so on and so forth, filling a party with 6 characters, and all of you combining your forces to go through the game and embark upon that adventure. And with Baldur's Gate 3, Larian Studios has replicated that system. You have a great single-player game where you have a main character who is your custom character, or if you want to play the game as an origin character. And while you do have other characters that are in your party, you don't start off the game with those characters. They are people that you meet along the way, and they join your party. They have their own motives, they have their own stories, they have their own reasons for doing things, for being there, and their own alignment, sort of, even though they've gotten rid of alignments here. And if you do things that are against those characters' beliefs, they will absolutely leave your party. They can die. They have all sorts of things that can happen to them. And if you look back at the history of Baldur's Gate as a franchise, the one thing that stands out more than anything else in the history of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, the reason why they won so many awards was not just because they were really cool mechanics and they brought Dungeons and Dragons into a 3D space. It was the power of the storytelling and the writing around the characters. And there were a ton of characters in the first game and in the second game. Now, for those of us who have been around for a long time, going back to the Baldur's Gate franchise, that franchise spawned another franchise, the Icewind Dale series, which is also set in the Forgotten Realms, which is the world of Faerun where Baldur's Gate takes place. Baldur's Gate takes place in the Sword Coast region, and the Icewind Dale games take place up in the Icewind Dale region of the world. And in those games, they were markedly different because when you started Icewind Dale and Icewind Dale 2, you did not have a single character who went forth on an adventure and found other companions to join your party. Instead, you started at the beginning of the game, you created a party of adventurers from scratch. There was no single story narrative. It was you are a group of adventurers going out and doing this thing and having this adventure as a group. And so um, there were no companion storylines. There were no relationships. The companions wouldn't leave you because they were part of your core adventuring group. They wouldn't leave because of the decisions you made. They wouldn't agree or disagree with you. It was just the group going forth, and the group traditionally had a leader. And I know in the enhanced editions, they even went an extra step and allowed for a greater variety of pre-created parties of adventurers that had backstories with them, which is really cool. If you haven't played the enhanced editions of the Icewind Dale games, I highly recommend the hell. Also, the enhanced editions of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. But the main difference here is that the Baldur's Gate series has always been about you being the avatar, you being the character, finding people who align with your beliefs and taking those adventurers, those party of adventurers with you, having relationships with those people, and either choosing to run with the same group or maybe making decisions that have those people leaving your group or having them accidentally get killed off along the way. That never happened in the Icewind Dale series because Icewind Dale was always about creating your custom party from scratch. So this is the one thing that it makes me chuckle. Again, you can absolutely play Baldur's Gate 3 any way you want. If you want to spin up multiple versions of the client so that you can sort of game the system and create your own custom multiplayer party of custom origin characters, you do you. You absolutely have the right. But I would argue that that is against the spirit of the Baldur's Gate franchise. Icewind Dale, on the other hand, was always designed around that concept, creating your custom party of adventurers and going forth as a group without any sort of background or anything else. And while I highly doubt that we would ever get an Icewind Dale 3, wouldn't it be cool if Larian Studios was the company that, because of the success of Baldur's Gate 3, they turn around and do Icewind Dale 3? That would be amazing. I doubt that'll happen. Given the success they've had with Baldur's Gate 3, I would think that they probably will work on an expansion. It depends on what Wizards of the Coast thinks that they want them. What kind of future they build together. What's also interesting, I haven't dug into this theme yet on my channel, but there was a recent earnings call where Chris Cox, the CEO of Hasbro, who owns Wizards of the Coast, basically came out and said that the sales of Baldur's Gate 3 and not just the sales per se, but the licensing revenue for video games related to Dungeons and Dragons outstrips like all the movies and everything else that they've got going on in terms of Dungeons and Dragons products and projects that have been coming out in recent years. And I think we're going to continue to see that if companies like Larian Studios can make really cool Dungeons and Dragons related games for us to play. So, again, this goes back to the spirit of the Baldur's Gate games has always been about you being the avatar and finding people to come along with you and having relationships and those characters having their own motives and reasons for being there. Whereas the Icewind Dale series, for those of you who don't know, was always about having sort of a neutral, in the sense that no one has their own story. You're all there just to be a part of adventures. Like the start of Icewind Dale is the group of adventurers sitting together in a tavern because they all came there seeking adventure, and they're there. Which, by the way, Solasta did this very well. I loved the intro to Solasta, where when you start the game, you're a party of adventurers meeting up in a tavern, and you're all there because you've heard the call of adventure. There's this summons that went out, and you've showed up to earn your way forth as an adventurer. So I realized that you can create a custom party in Baldur's Gate 3 by doing the multi-client thing, but again, by doing so, you are throwing out all of the hard work that Larian Studios put into creating these amazing stories around the companions of the game. And those companions are meant to be there. As an example, Shadowheart, and I don't want to spoil too much here, but Shadowheart is very integral to the story because of what she has with her. Gale is very important to the story because of what he has going on. Lae'zel is very important to the story because of what happens with her and the Githyanki and the history of the Githyanki with the Mind Flayers and the Illithids. Will's backstory with who he is and who his family is in relation to what's going on in Baldur's Gate. Hugely important. Karlach and her ties to the prequel adventure module that was launched before Baldur's Gate 3, the actual Dungeons & Dragons tabletop campaign. And, we could go forth from there. And, of course, Jaheira being tied back and Minsk being tied back to the original first two games and so on and so forth. There are a lot of storylines here that are meant to be a part of the core journey that you take as that central character who is the principal avatar. And yes, you do control all four of the party members in your group. And yes, if you are using one of the other characters as the face of your party, then you will get a slightly different version of the game than you would get if you were playing as your own character. But also, I would argue that because of the way the origin system works in Baldur's Gate 3, if you're going to be playing, if you want to play as Gale, then play the game as Gale. Like, you can start the game as Gale or as Astarion or as Will, and they get their own unique cutscenes and backstories because of their integral stories that go towards the overall plot of Baldur's Gate 3. So again, I realize this might be a triggering conversation for some of you. I'm not trying to tell you that you can't play the game how you want to play, but I am arguing in favor of playing this game the way it was intended, which is you as the singular character with a party of adventurers that you gather to your bosom and go through the game with you, and whether or not they stay with you or survive depends on your actions and the romances you can have with them and so on and so forth. This has never been, the Baldur's Gate franchise has never been about creating a custom party from scratch, because that was always Icewind Dale's territory. Love to hear your thoughts below. Drop them down in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you like this video. Daily streams at 11 a.m. Support with memberships and beyond. You get a ton of access to private videos, member-only chat, and stuff on the live streams. There's a Discord with the links down below. Hopefully you're having fun in Baldur's Gate 3 like I am. I'll see you in the next video or live stream, everyone. Until then, stay safe and happy gaming.